my name is Fatima and welcome back to the Race Edit. And if you're new here, welcome to the Race Edit and welcome to a new video. I was gone, but I'm back, and as we do, we're just figuring things out with this channel. As you guys know, this is a Formula One based channel where I talk about all things Formula One. I do dabble in other series as well, but the main focus is Formula One. For now, I will be changing that for the future, for the really, really near and dear future. I will be focusing on other series as well because, as you guys know, I love motorsport and I love talking about motorsport, and I do believe that there's so much more series aside from Formula One that can be explored. So I'm going to be exploring some other series as well, and I hope that you all join me for the journey in doing this. Now, with that being said, the Formula One movie F1 is coming out on June 27th. So, very soon. I am recording this on the 24th, so just in a few days, this movie will be coming out for the public. And with that, it means there's going to be a whole boatload of new eyes on our sport, new eyes who are going to watch the movie and want to learn more about Formula One. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, the sport has grown immensely over the past few years. We are in a Formula One boom right now, and I do not know when this bubble that we're in is gonna blow, but it is a wonderful boom to be in. It's a great time to be a Formula One fan, and it's just really cool to see every single thing that's being done in the sport. But with that being said, I do want to say that with new eyes coming into our lovely sport, I do think as F1 fans, we do need to be mindful of how we treat new fans who are still learning about the sport and learning the technicalities of everything, because obviously as Drive to Survive, people came in and a lot of the old heads, as I would say, I don't think we're the most accepting online, specifically online, because we know there's a whole different world out there outside of social media. But you'll see the arguments of, oh, you're just a Drive to Survive fan, you don't know real knowledge, yada, yada, yada. And I think that we should be a bit more mindful with the new fans coming in. You can't really, I said this in my TikTok video, you can't gatekeep Formula One. Gatekeeping is just not cute. However, I do want to talk about what is it about Formula One, because like I said, we are in a boom and this sport just keeps growing and growing, and I'm just like, why? How? Obviously, we know Liberty Media, Netflix, the drivers, everything. But I do think it's really interesting to just kind of dissect why it is that this sport is just as big as it is compared to its other counterparts. This is not a technical video where I'm going to be talking about the technical aspects of F1. I'm just kind of going through things that I've noticed that maybe make F1 what it is and why people love it so much and why people keep coming back for more in this sport. I'm so sorry about my lighting, by the way. I'm trying something new and I don't think it's working, so we will fix that for my next video. Now, with that being said, while you may have racing series such as NASCAR, IndyCar, endurance racing, which are all great in their own right, Formula One is just something that is truly special. It is open wheel single-seater racing, and it is known as the pinnacle of motorsport. Now, why is that? There are other open wheel single-seater racing series out there, but why is it that Formula One is the one that grabs everyone's attention? Well, I do think it's because of just how, one, fast the cars are, the super speed that the cars have. They can go up to 300 kilometers an hour, which is absolutely insane. But also, it's the cutting edge technology that is used in Formula One cars that is just unheard of in other series. However, as much as Formula One is about the fast cars, it's also about the drivers as well. But I do think that what makes Formula One so special is that the drivers are just as important as the team that is behind them. And I think that's obviously in every series, but what's underneath the driver that makes the difference? Let's use McLaren as an example. They have two incredibly great drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, who are very fast. However, they have struggled with their car up until the tail end of 2023 when they figured out what it is that works with the regulations that we are under, and now they are leading the championship, and they are in a championship title battle between the two teammates. So, like I said, you can have a fast driver, but you need a fast car. You need an equally as fast car as well. Or you could just be very lucky and everyone else is just very slow and you just get it right each and every single time, which could potentially happen with Red Bull's Max Verstappen, where their car is not as fast this year. However, Max is a very skilled and great driver, and if the other teams make mistakes, he could potentially clinch his fifth WDC. For those of you who don't know, Formula One has two titles. You have the WDC, which is the World Drivers' Championship title, and then you have the WCC, which is the World Constructors' Championship. These are both very important, but to the teams, the WCC, and this is something that the layperson may not know, but it's the WCC that is what matters the most to the team. Of course, they would want a win with their WDC and a WDC. That is called a 1-2. However, for the team, clinching that WCC brings in the sponsorships, it brings in the prize money, and it's what keeps them going to continue on producing the car that they have into being greater than it was the previous year. Now, F1 teams are at the forefront of cutting edge technology, and in order to stay on top of their technological marvels that they produce each year, we do have regulation changes that come every few years. So right now we are currently at the tail end of our old regulations, and we are moving into new regulations come 2026. And this will be a really big and exciting change for the future of Formula One, we hope. So what's going to happen is that the cars will now be shorter and much more lighter, which will attempt to make the racing much more competitive, as well as making the cars much more nimble too. The aerodynamics will be completely overhauled. And so what happens whenever regulations changes come in is that it means everyone starts fresh again. Right now, teams are allowed to work on their 2026 cars at this current moment, but there are limitations and there are restrictions on that. So we won't know how fast the team's cars are going to be up until, not even testing, but up until race day 1, 2026. And that is when we will know which teams are potentially going to be leading the WCC and which driver could potentially clinch the WDC. This could be either their first WDC, or it could be a driver such as Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, even Fernando Alonso, who could potentially clinch another title win, which would be amazing. What else makes Formula One very enticing for new fans and just for fans in general? As I mentioned, the cars are super fast, but I think what's really cool about our sport is that they race all over the world. As I mentioned earlier, you have the Monaco Grand Prix. I mean, again, it's Monaco, right? You have races in Abu Dhabi, you have races in Bahrain, we have races in Italy, Canada, pretty much almost every single continent. Hopefully, with this new South Africa bid, we will have Formula One race back in the continent of Africa again, which would be amazing. But I do think that not only is it just the racing in different countries, but it's also just the names of the teams that make this sport so glamorous to newer fans. You have big names like Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin. You hear these names. These are names that you hear pretty much all the time when it comes to car manufacturers. And for a new fan, it's what brings you in. If you're a new fan and you have a specific car that is your dream car that you would like to drive, I'm assuming that's probably going to be the team that you would support. If you've wanted a Ferrari your entire life and Ferrari's racing in Formula One, you would probably support Ferrari, right? Exactly. But why is it that Formula One is such a big cultural phenomenon? I would say that it's everything that I just mentioned. You have this high speeds, the racing all around the world, the manufacturers that race in Formula One. And being a Formula One fan really truly feels that you're part of an exclusive club, which is what they intended to be. Now, it used to be extremely exclusive to the point where the openness that we have of Formula One right now was unheard of in previous years. Now it's a bit more open. Getting tickets is still very hard for the average person. However, you have things like F1 TV, you can access their YouTube. All the teams are on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they're on TikTok, they're on almost all social media platforms. All the drivers are on social media platforms. So there's more openness in the sport, which makes it feel that you are also a part of whatever it is that this world of Formula One is. However, as I mentioned, we are currently in a motorsports boom, and while motorsports has always been a big thing, I can't lie. I mean, we all know what NASCAR is. We all know what the Indy 500 is. We've heard of Le Mans. We've heard of course, Formula One. I do think that right now we are in a different territory of the motorsports boom that has never been touched before. And not to be biased or not to sound biased, but I do believe a lot of that is thanks to the Netflix show Drive to Survive, which brought a lot of eyes into the sport. How did this happen though? Because Netflix has a lot of docuseries that they bring out, but nothing like what Formula One has produced. And I think that it just came at the right time, truthfully. Drive to Survive first aired for the public in 2019, and the year after, people went into lockdown. So they had a lot of free time, and Netflix was there. And it just happened to be perfect timing. Then you add on the 2021 season of Formula One, which is probably one of the greatest seasons of Formula One ever, and the very controversial ending of that 2021 season. On top of that, it captivated people's attention. A lot of people started watching Formula One because of that season and are still chasing the high of that 2021 season. The controversial ending that is still discussed today, that people are still very decisive on. You will be on one side and another side. There is no in between about that ending. But we move and we move forward. I can't also ignore the fact that the drivers are extremely popular, more popular than they've ever been. Of course, there's been drivers of previous eras that have been massive names. You can't talk about Formula One without talking about Michael Schumacher. You can't talk about Formula One without talking about Ayrton Senna. These are big, big names in the sport. However, we are in an era where, because of social media, people have more access to drivers that they might not even know are Formula One drivers. I mean, how I got into Formula One was because of Lewis Hamilton. I've always liked Lewis Hamilton outside of Formula One. I've known Lewis Hamilton outside of Formula One. And when I put two and two together, I was like, hey, I like racing. I like Lewis Hamilton. Bada bing, bada boom. And I'm sure there's a lot of newer fans who are getting into the sport because of, honestly, Lando Norris. Quadrant, his brand is a really big brand. His YouTube channel is amazing. And there's a lot of Quadrant fans that are Quadrant fans outside of F1. And then there's a lot of Quadrant fans who are also F1 fans and Lando Norris fans as well. So it'd be really negligent to ignore the drivers in this because they do have a big part, especially Lewis Hamilton. And that's not a Lewis Hamilton bias, but it's just the truth. He is a 7-time world champion. He changed the name of the game when it comes to F1, when it comes to fashion in F1, when it comes to personality in F1, when it comes to bringing Hollywood into F1. He's definitely a big force into why F1 is the way that it is. When it comes to popularity, and as to why a lot of the drivers are able to have a bit more freedom when it comes to their fashion choices and what they show and what they don't show, yada, 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 yada. You know, we tie all that together. You have cars racing all around the world at super speeds. You have team strategies coming into play. You have teammate rivalries and historic team rivalries as well. It's just the perfect drama to watch, and it's just the perfect way to keep people coming back into the sport. And it's why the sport is growing each and more every day. And then you talk about the external things, such as the popularity of the drivers, personal lives, which is a whole other ballgame that we won't get into here because that's not what I talk about on my channel. But that is a whole other sub-genre as well. And then you just get into how accessible the sport is now for a lot of people. And that kind of is why we are where we are with the movie and why we have this F1 movie coming out, which is really and truly exploring all of these, I guess, storylines. You have drama when it comes to the rivalries, the super speeds, the racing all around the world, the personal lives of the drivers in the movie. You have all of this, you have the team strategies, you have all of this, and it makes for a wonderful Hollywood movie. There's so much about Formula One that fans can take away from the sport than just the racing. There's so much that you can learn about, honestly, probably yourself as well, and how you react to some races, you know, but there's just so much that you can take away from being an F1 fan. And it is really exciting to see that this movie is going to be coming out and bringing in a whole new audience, which is really important, especially when it comes to talking about diversity in the sport, because I do believe that the sport, not even I do believe, I do know that the sport has become way more diverse than it was in previous years. And that is thanks to a lot of the changes that have been made since, honestly, the past decade. that will continue to be made. And if you are a new fan coming into this sport, please stick around. There are some really high highs and some low lows. And also, please keep up with our young ladies who are also racing in F1 Academy, because there is a feature for women in F1. And F1 Academy is putting in the groundwork for that to happen. And I do think it is important that we acknowledge that as well. There, like I said, there's a Netflix show, F1 Academy, that recently came out. There is F1 Academy itself that you should be watching. Then there's their Instagrams, their social medias, their TikToks. It's not just about female racing in motorsport. It's just about female representation in motorsport as well, which is why it's so lovely to watch F1 TV with the wonderful Ruth Buscombe, who is a previous head strategist, and she's also a presenter as well. You have the lovely Laura Winter, Ariana Bravo, Naomi Schiff. I can keep going. And of course, Laura Miller, Esteban Ocon's race engineer. Just wonderful women in the sport who are doing wonderful things. And I do think that I wish I could name all of them because they all deserve to be highlighted, but that was just to name a few. So yeah, if you are a new F1 fan, stick around, enjoy the sport. And yes, you might be confused by what goes on in the movie, because there's no way a 61-year-old who has not raced in like 3 decades can just come in and race and start winning races. Could happen, but highly unlikely. I mean, we got Fernando Alonso here, so who knows? Anything can happen, right? But that's all I have for you all today. Thank you so much for sitting here and watching this video. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.